Blaso Feature Friday. Today, I will be interviewing an amazing Black illustrator, Charlot Kristensen. Hello, how are you doing?
Hi, thank you. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for being here on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
And before we get started, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm an artist, an illustrator, and author originally from Denmark, but I live in Dublin right now. I've been away for 15 years, and I've been doing freelancing full time for about a year and a half now, and since then I've worked with various clients, such as New York Times, Google, Penguin Random House, and I've also just released my first graphic novel called "What We Don't Talk About." It just came out here last month, and yeah, it's just been a very busy time since then.
Yes, and I remember I was looking up all your stuff and everything, and I saw your book, What We Don't Talk About, and it looks and it sounds amazing. Could you please tell us what it's all about?
Yeah, sure. So what we don't talk about is it's about an interracial couple called Fry and Adam, and Fry's meeting Adam's white family for the first time in 2 years, which is already a bit strange. And when she arrives at their house, there's various situations that occur that makes her feel very ostracized and treated unfairly by his mom, particularly. And whenever she tries to address it with Adam, he's being very sort of avoiding the topic, and he sort of tries to play it down. So there's sort of a problem starts to kind of rise in their relationship, and she starts to wonder if she can be with a person who's unwilling to sort of address these problems, and also has, her that has a family as well that is very intolerant and stuff. So that's kind of what the story is about.
Yes, and it sounds like it's a very serious topic. It is a serious topic. And I don't know, like usually when I think about comic books, you always think about like, superheroes or whatever. So I like that you approached it in a different way and you're shedding light to an actual issue that people are actually going through.
Yeah, no, that's true. Like you're actually right that a lot of people who may not have read comics before would would think about like DC and Marvel, like superhero comics, or they'd think about like obviously like manga, like which is obviously big in Japan. But then there's a whole in between. There's so many varieties of books out there that are in the graphic novel format as well. And so I think it's a really, really diverse medium, and you do a lot of things with it. And for me personally, like I like talking about things that I care about, like trying to use my art to shed light on problems, social problems particularly. And coming from an interracial family myself, it was just like a story I really wanted to bring out there. So I just thought, well, why don't we do this in comics? There hasn't really been a story in comics that has looked at this particular issue, and it might sort of encourage people to read comics, but also it's another way of sort of looking at the problem and shedding a light to it. So yeah.
Yes, and I can't wait to read it. I ordered it. It won't be coming till like October, so I have to like really wait to read it. But I'm so excited because a lot of times you'll watch a show, you'll read a book, read a comic, and you don't always see like a Black female protagonist, taking the lead. So I think it's really cool that you're doing that. And speaking of media, a lot of times in America, we don't really perceive that there are other Black people in different countries. And that's only because we don't see a lot of it in media. So could you please walk us through the experiences that you may have faced and that you've noticed other Black people faced in the UK?
Yeah, so like obviously I'm not like from the UK. I have family there. I've been there many times, and I know what you mean that a lot of the movies that we watch, books we read are very much obviously from American perspective, and there's very little books being published and films being published in sort of like in the UK that shed the problem on the same light. And you'll find actually when you sort of start digging into it that a lot of the experiences are very, very similar. Like, for example, there was a type of segregation system in the UK that I didn't even know about back in the day. There was, there was civil unrest. There was, there was the same sort of like fights that Black people in the UK were, fighting for the same rights to have equal rights to like white people in UK. And I feel like from talking to like friends and, sort of particularly when it comes around police and stuff, there's the same sort of like intimidation and fear. Not, I wouldn't say on the same scale as America, but there's still the same kind of like, yeah, you feel like you're being profiled in the same way. So for me, I felt like, well, I'd like to make the story based in the UK, because I feel like in the UK, white people are very unwilling to talk about race, and they think it's like an individual thing. They don't think it's systematic. I feel like in America, there's been much more like conversation around that, and there are white people who sort of will admit, oh yeah, it's systematic. I know there's still a lot of white people who don't, but in the UK it's like a really difficult thing to sort of, and I think it's only just now that people are sort of waking up and are realizing, hey, wait, actually we have really serious problems in our systems too here. So I'd say, yeah, for me personally, as a light-skinned Black person, I haven't experienced the same amount of racial, like what would you call it? Like, I'm trying to find my words here. I'm not a native English speaker, so sometimes it doesn't come to
No,
me
it's
very.
fine.
Like, I know that from my mom's experience is very different, because she's originally from Zimbabwe. She's a dark-skinned Black woman, and she lived in Denmark at a time where there was very, very few Black people and very few interracial. So her experience compared to mine is so different, particularly because she's got an accent, and that's something people take on, and you become much more of a target for like racial abuse. I've been sort of like, I think I've been very privileged at having lighter skin, to have not experienced the same amount, but at the same time, there's been situations where I felt ostracized, particularly because of my hair. And that has been a very sort of defining feature of my Africanness. And growing up in Denmark particularly, it was like we were like the only Black family in that village, in that town. So you really stood out. You really questioned how you fit in, whether you felt Danish, whether how people saw you. So there was a lot of like very aggressive kind of racist stuff that I've definitely experienced like growing up, and sort of shaped the way I thought about myself. Yeah, I hope that was a lot of stuff.
No, but everything that you were saying, I feel like a lot of people here, I know I could relate to some of the things that you were saying, growing up where you have like so many white people and like feeling ostracized. I could definitely relate to that. And again, like I didn't know till like last year. I mean, I knew, but I didn't like know. Like when I think of Europe in general, all I think is white. I don't think that there's other races there, because it's not talked about. It's not seen a lot. So Thank you for opening up about that. Thank you so much.
Oh no, you're welcome. No, it's just think, yeah, no, you're right. It's very, like, even now when you watch a lot of movies in Europe, there's just very little visibility on Black people. I mean, there's loads of Black people in France. There's a lot in Germany. I didn't even realize. And UK has a massive community as well, and they've been around for so long. And it's a real shame that it's something that's just not seen at all. So yeah, I can kind of understand why, from someone living in a very different place, it's not something. Yeah.
Yes. And I mean, so you published your first book. You said that you got to, work with Google Doodle. You've been designing covers for magazines. How is all of this coming to be?
God, it's unreal, because obviously I graduated back in 2015. I did a degree in London, and then I came back to Dublin, and I was a bit like, I don't really know how to find client work. Like when you're in university, they don't really teach you the business side of being an artist, and you have to really figure out a lot of stuff yourself, which is not great. I'm lucky to have known some people from uni who sort of got me my first jobs. I think a lot of times it's like those very early connections you might make in university, or you might make through like Twitter particularly, and then someone will recommend you for a job, and it's like maybe not the best job, but like it's like it's like a beginning anyway. And I think from that, it sort of just gave me like the sort of encouragement to keep going. But when I came back to Dublin, I was like, well, I need a job. So I went back to customer service, worked a few years, tried to figure out where I wanted to take my art. I sort of had an idea in my last year of uni. I was thinking, well, I really want to use my art to empower Black people and to tell stories. That was really important to me. So I did a book called Black Women in History. And this was like, I did it back in 2015. I hadn't seen a book like it at the time. A lot of times when we talk about Black History Month, we would highlight a lot of guys, and I literally didn't know any women. So I sort of took this research on and tried to find various women from different places, and particularly in different fields. I didn't want it to be just, we're often seen in like music, entertainment business, but we're not seen in science. We're not seen in, various other fields as well. So I did a book like that, and I took it to my first fair in Dublin, and people just bought it. And I was like, wow, people want to read this. This is great. Particularly in Dublin, where not only like in that community is really white. So I felt really like, here's me with my book about Black women. I was like really nervous. But like people were so excited to read it and pick it up and, you know, and learn about it. And it sort of things just kind of started tripling, you know, after that I started getting a bit more interest. But I think to really like think about how I got my work was really through Twitter, it was through social media. And it was sort of joining hashtags like I remember when Drawing While Black came out, the hashtag, if you research it yourself, it's been a great way to kind of like highlight Black artists from not just America, but from all around Europe, all around the world. And we sort of connected with each other and kind of recommended each other for work. And it's also given opportunities for like art directors and editors to find our work, which we didn't really have like a visibility before. So it's through things like that, hashtags particularly, connecting with other artists and, you know, engaging on social media. But also it's been a lot of, I'm sorry if I'm rambling on for a long time.
No.
But it's also, I also felt like my art wasn't really in a place where I could really sell it. And I think that's sometimes like you can have the skills, but it can still not be very sellable. And I felt that I had to kind of maybe sit back and look at what I could, like, how could I improve my art? I felt at the time my art was very, I was doing a lot of shading, a lot of lighting, and it didn't look amazing. Like I felt like I was a good drawer, but I felt like the end result wasn't really something people would really go, oh wow, that's really nice. So I spent some time thinking, okay, am I still doing something that was kind of maybe more trendy, like, you know, years back? Maybe I need to see what kind of art is out there now. And I know that a lot of things have kind of simplified a lot. A lot of things are much more flatter. It's more, particularly illustration, it's a lot more selective colors. People don't really, not necessarily, like there's no rules, but I felt like a lot of art was like very kind of, okay, 4 colors they'd work with. My art was like, there was like a million colors going on. I was like, maybe I just need to strip it back, try to rethink how I'm coloring, try to think how I'm shading and how I'm, you know, am I using just one shadow? Am I using multiple shadows? And so after sort of like, you know, kind of going through those, sort of like analyzing my art and then putting stuff out, I sort of noticed people picking it up more, like being a bit more interested in it. I was like, okay, I think I'm going in the right direction. So I just kept going. Hashtags like draw this in your style is actually really, really insightful, because you learn how other people work. You learn what kind of like colors they use, how they shade. You're sort of paying attention to how they draw, and then you're trying to draw it in your style. And I felt like I learned a lot from doing things like that. And that was just kind of, that was just really like the process I took. And once I kind of like figured out, oh yeah, I feel like I know where my art is going, as I started putting it out there again, and I felt like I was getting more interest all of a sudden. I was like, oh, something's working.
Yes, well, I love the journey that it took, because I mean, you were starting to doubt yourself, but then after that, like, you stepped back up with it. And I feel like that's something that like a lot of artists of like all different kind of genres we go through. We're like, am I doing this the right way? Is it worth selling? Like, are people going to actually like it? But I like that you took that risk. You were talking about your book. You took the risk, you put it out there, and people were inspired by it. And I really do love the way that you use your art to advocate for Black people, because that's what Power N Blaso, that's what it's all about, inspiring others to use their art to speak out for change. So thank you for being a role model. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot to hear. Yeah, it's funny because like before that I felt like, you know, I was making just pretty pictures, but I wasn't really sure, was I putting a message out there? Was I doing something that I cared about? And I just remember figuring out my final major project in uni being like, you know, well, I was getting into feminism. I was sort of starting to get interested in that. I was sort of starting to get interested in, like, you know, researching about, particularly because the Black Lives Matter movement started around 2014, I think, with the sad death of Mike Brown. And that's when I sort of started researching a lot. I was like, oh my God, this stuff is happening. And, you know, it's been happening for a long time. And I felt like I was a bit, maybe prior to that, maybe a bit oblivious, you know, particularly when you live in very white spaces and there's no one you can really like learn from, or sort of like that can kind of point out, oh, you know, that thing that happened to you was kind of racist. And you just like grew up your whole life thinking, oh, that's normal that people touch my hair, or it's normal that people make these comments. And then you realize, wait a minute, that's actually really patronizing. It's really, you're made to feel like ostracized, right? So once I started picking up on that stuff, I felt, well, okay, I've got the skill. I can draw. What if I combine it with something I care about? I like want to try it in the smallest way possibly to put some change out there. I know I'm not going to change the world, but it's a step, right? So I just think that's important.
And you're definitely you're showing the message. Again, I wasn't able to read your book yet. I'm still waiting. But just like seeing the front cover, you had a dark-skinned woman, and she's the one that with this guy. Like, she's like pretty much like the love interest, like, and she's like the main character. And that really did mean a lot to me. Like, just seeing it got me so interested. It got me invested already, because again, we don't see like a lot of Black people on the cover of anything. And then when we do, they're often very light skinned. And so we don't have a lot of that representation. So you're putting the message out there. Don't ever worry about that. You're definitely doing your job, definitely fulfilling what you're working for. So yes.
That's brilliant. That's so good. Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right in the sense that like when people like put a Black person in any like, whether it's an animated show or like a movie, it's like it's the light skinned one. It's like, well, maybe they should really, take that step and actually put a Black person in there. So like I think that's important. Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully that might change something.
Hopefully, and having more artists like you do it will definitely get that to be. But great. Thank you so much for being here. That does conclude the interview. Everything that you said was just amazing, and it was so inspiring. And I hope that you guys picked up on it. Thanks again for being here. This is Power N Blaso.
Thank you so much, Tia. This was great. I really had fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes.
All right. Bye.